So we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders on deck. She's going to come in and talk about her big bestseller. But before she does so, I want to remind you of what Ms. Sanders went through as the spokesperson for President Trump. Go.
Sarah Sanders is not a disease. She's a symptom of this wasting disease and just a mouthpiece for depravity.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders' looks are the best thing about her. She has shiny hair and pretty eyes and a lovely complexion. But on the inside, hideous as a pinworm in an anus.
I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts. And then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies.
So that's disgraceful. I think every fair-minded American would know all three of those people should be disqualified, canceled. All right? I wouldn't do that, by the way. I would not. I don't call for a banishment on them. I despise them. I think all three of them, Bob Garfield, Samantha Bee, and Michelle Wolf, are despicable human beings. And to say that, you know, as Ms. Sanders was sitting on the dais, Ms. Wolf. But the best revenge is that Michelle Wolf ruined her career by saying that. So, joining us now is the aforementioned Sarah Huckabee Sanders from Little Rock, Arkansas. Her book is Speaking for Myself, big bestseller. I read the book. It's very interesting. Full disclosure, before we get to Sarah, I did recommend her to my publisher, Macmillan, which eventually did publish the book under the St. Martin's imprint. So I was involved with getting that book, or at least getting some money to the Sanders family in Arkansas. Not that I want to gloat, but I want everybody to know that I did have a little bit of something to do with this. So, Sarah, when you were working at the White House and you heard these personal attacks on yourself, you're a human being, all right? A mom, a wife. How angry did you get?
I mean, certainly, I don't think there's anybody that likes to hear those types of things said about them. For me personally, we went into the White House fully prepared to defend our positions, defend the president's agenda. But I think most of us were very surprised by how aggressive the attacks were, and not from nobodies. These were from mainstream, in some cases, household names, media figures on main anchors at stations, attacking us, not for an agenda, not for our policy, but attacking us personally. And that was something that was very surprising to me. You know, definitely didn't like it, but in many ways it emboldened us to fight back, stay strong, and keep going, and call out their hypocrisy even more.
Now, on page 110 of your book, you do address the Wolf situation, which was unique because you weren't watching it on TV. You were sitting a few feet away from her in a Washington ballroom at the Correspondents' Dinner. And I took away from the passage that you write about this, that you were emotionally upset that evening, and you discussed it with your husband, who was sitting in the room as well. Did you talk to Ms. Wolf at all, because you were very close to her, about what she did?
Not after the fact. We greeted each other briefly just before we went on to the stage, but after it was over, I was sort of swarmed in their defense by several members of the media who apologized for her, but also by my friends and fellow coworkers at the White House to kind of, you know, check on and say, like, don't worry about this. Let's fight back. And, you know, I'm glad you stayed there and set strong and held your head high as you should have in that moment. So she and I never spoke after that moment, and I don't think we ever will. I have no reason to talk to her at this point. I think we've had enough exchange for one lifetime.
All right. And as I said, her career is nowhere and it'll never be anywhere. So she actually hurt herself by doing that. But if I were there, I would have taken the little bread roll and kind of bounce it right up the head. But I'm immature, and I don't advise anybody to do that. Now, your book is fairly positive to Donald Trump. No cheap shots, no regrets. You still believe in the man. Were you surprised when John Bolton, for example, turned on the president, wrote a book that was very, very negative. Were you surprised?
Not really, because that's who John was in the White House. He was always running his own operation, his own agenda, and we get very angry when it wasn't his agenda getting carried out. On more than one occasion, he came into my office and wanted me to put out a statement that I knew was contrary to what I'd heard the president say on a particular matter only hours or days before. And that was irregular for him. So I wish I could say that I was surprised, but I'm not. But I'm certainly disappointed that somebody would take a role like his. I think that it absolutely puts our country and our national security in jeopardy when he writes a book like he does and betrays the trust of the president and the rest of his co-workers by putting that type of information, and in many cases, false information, out into the public.
So you do see it as a betrayal, as a Judas move?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that they're looking into whether or not some of the information he used in his book was classified. I went through a lengthy process in order to get my book cleared by the White House and make sure it didn't contain any classified information. My understanding, his book was never cleared for publication. And so I definitely think it's a good thing they're looking at that. His role, and I think he has hurt that role for any person moving forward by politicizing it and by putting that information out there. If he had felt so strongly that the president was a danger, why did he stay for so long? Why didn't he speak out sooner? I think we know why. He wanted to make money. He wanted to sell a book, and that's exactly what he's done. And I think it's disgraceful to do what he has done throughout this process.
Did you read the Woodward book?
I did not. And you know what? I didn't have to, because he spent, obviously everybody wants to talk about the number of hours he spent talking to Woodward. I spent almost every day with the president for 2.5 years. So I didn't need to read the Woodward book.
But I asked you that question because I have a better question coming up, but I wanted to establish that you haven't read it. So in the book, you got former Secretary of State Tillerson, former Secretary of Defense Mattis, and former National Defense Chief Coates, all talked to Woodward. They weren't quoted, but they obviously talked to him because their narratives are the first half of the book. All of them basically criticized the president as essentially being immature and not able to decision make at the level a president should be. If you wanted to just do a whole estimation of the three of them, that's what they told Woodward, and Woodward spends about 120 pages on that. Are you surprised that all three of those men took that posture?
A little bit more so, not by all three. Certainly, I think a couple of them is to be expected. But I think it is problematic to have people that are that intimately involved. If you feel that way, then why did you participate and stay in that administration for so long? Why didn't you speak out? And why do so in such a cowardly way? If you have a real problem, talk about it publicly or talk about it directly to the president in the moment. Don't wait until later, just before an election, to go out and put your voice into a book, but not really put your name on it. I have a problem with people who leak anonymously. I put my name on the record when I'm putting a statement out, especially if it's as charged as some of the statements that these individuals are making.
Of the three, Tillerson, Mattis, and Coates, did you have any problem with those three? Did you respect them at the time?
I had a good relationship with Secretary Mattis. My back and forth with him was in a different capacity, obviously, than between him and the president. Secretary Tillerson, I did not think was a good fit for the president from a very early point. That was just never going to be a relationship that was to the benefit of the administration. And so, Director Coates, I didn't spend as much time with him in and out because most of what he does is not a public facing role. And so my interactions with him were a little bit more limited, but personally got along with him fine. Okay. But I don't love the way the aftermath has worked out and the role that they've chosen to play.
Bill O'Reilly is back on TV and only on The First. No Spin News, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on The First.